talk about that later on.
Oh,
You've got a fan base here then.
the hype train has left the station.
How old did you say this was?
12 years.
12 years, yeah.
Man, it is good. We just threw all of that on the floor, and this man has no regard for safety. He is not wearing shoes. He could go down while using the.
And John's dead. Wow. That didn't take long at all, but I'm sure he'll come back. Yeah. So I think without any further ado, we have a great guest tonight. Super pumped about this one. Many of you guys will know him. He's not a stranger, especially if you've spent any time on Instagram. But we are joined by Aaron from Smokewagon Bourbon. Welcome, Aaron. Honestly,
I'm here.
I don't know how you pronounce your last name, but I'm super curious.
Well, there's dispute between
Is there?
the Florida Chepeniks and the rest of us, but it's Chepenik.
Okay.
In Florida, they say there's no second E. It's Chepenik, but you know.
Chepenik. Okay. Well, we'll go with Chepenik. I'll take your word for it.
You're the resident expert on it.
Yeah, our subject matter expert, I think is the term. But welcome. Thanks so much for joining us tonight.
Oh, it's my pleasure. Thanks, guys. How you doing?
We're doing well. It's finally winter here in Wisconsin, so it's great bourbon drinking weather as far as I'm concerned.
Oh, yeah.
All right.
Let's see here.
What are you drinking there? What do you got?
I poured some of the small batch. And fun story. This is actually the first.
I've got the small batch too.
All right.
I'm having it all.
I'm gonna pour some small batch. I don't want to
Man, I caught one of your Instagram videos today where you were blending up a batch of 8 different floors and vintages all in one crazy ass batch.
Yes, I think that's the most I've ever done for Uncut Unfiltered.
Did that keep you busy for a minute or what, man?
Surprisingly, no. I got it the first try, and it's crazy because everything before the holidays, every day that I did it was like, I wouldn't say a struggle because it's fun, you know, but there was a couple of days where like I had to go step outside and because you're trying to figure it out, man, and all of a sudden you're like, am I ever going to get this? And you start getting frustrated, and then you get inside your own head, you know, and so I just had to like. And it's those. I mean, I know all MGP tastes the same, but
right, of course.
These freaking 5th floor 5-year barrels out of this one warehouse are the most inconsistent ones I've ever dealt with, and I don't have any of those right now, and I'm wondering if that made it easier. It's just I don't know. There's so many cool things that I'm working with now because, you know, we just bought the 1,400 barrels from MGP, and then we have all the stuff that we've been laying down since 2015. And it just and I was so I'm familiar with everything now since I've been using the new acquisition stuff for a while. But there's still like tons of floors and warehouses I have no experience with. And
Interesting.
Yeah, like these basement. I've never gotten anything out of a basement before. And those were crazy because they look old. They're all gnarly and dark, and the rings are rusted, and they look like they're, you know, 22 years old, but they're very youthful. And I would think in the basement, because it's cold, that I'd expect a lot of proof loss because the alcohol is going to dissipate before the water because it's so humid down there. But I thought they were going to be kind of fat barrels, and they're more like 30% proof gallon loss, which is what you'd expect to see out of a 6-year. So,
okay, interesting.
But yeah, so I'm always learning stuff. I always think I gotta figure it out, and then
and then the whiskey teaches you a lesson.
Yeah. Oh yeah,
it's great.
Well,
you gotta stay on your toes and never get too full of yourself, or you'll learn some hard lessons.
We'll give you the Willy Wonka of the West.
Yeah, I think that's appropriate here. So let's talk a little bit about the small batch bourbon that was sipping here.
This is where it all began.
I think this is the third or fourth expression that I had. I did not have them in chronological order, obviously, as they slowly make their way to me through people willing to send me samples here and there.
Yeah. So the small batch, is, when it first started, originally when we went to MGP in 2012, we bought all this 5-year, all the 5-year they would sell us, and that was all laid down by Seagram's. They hadn't even sold the plant to, they hadn't sold out to Diageo yet, and so I don't know if everybody knows the progress of ownership, but it was built by Seagram's, owned by Seagram's. Then when Seagram sold to Diageo back then didn't want to own facilities; they only wanted to own brands, and so they would instantly sell the facility and just contract to have them make whatever label brands they bought. And they sold it to Pernod Ricard. Pernod Ricard then sold it to an investment company like hedge. I shouldn't say hedge. I don't know what they were, but it was LDI. Yep. LDI didn't have the finances to really run it properly, and then they sold it to MGP. And so, so we were going to dump all of that into these big, huge tanks. The tanks never got approved by the city of Las Vegas, the fire department. And when it came time to release, those barrels that we were originally going to dump at 5 years were almost 9 years old. Wow. And so I wanted like our first expression to be like a 5-year, because I really liked the younger 36% rye, because it had tons of spice and things like that. One of the things I've learned now is that the sample I was given back then was a barrel sample, and that barrel was probably aged a little older than some of the other 5. My experience lately has been like, at 100 proof, there really hasn't been a 5-year I wanted. It works great at 92.5 for the straight. But yeah, okay. So it was like, what are we going to do? Right? We got all this 8-year bourbon, and we're going to release small batch. So all the experts said, what you do is you release it as an 8-year, and then when you have barrels, you step it down every year with a little bit younger juice until you get to 5 years. And I said, okay, that's cool. That's a great idea. That's what the experts say. So we never got picked up by our distributor. I know this is this too long? I know you're probably like, what are we talking about that? I'm telling you,
we want to hear all of it, man.
Okay. Yeah. Because small batch has got, and so we got approved for distribution in the summertime. And that was when, oh, by the way, let me take a step back. So we're waiting for approval for these tanks, right? Mm-hmm. And we finally got a fire design specialist to tell us what we had to. It was like $250,000 to build this wall with sensors that would close doors and like fans in case there was a spill and all this crazy stuff. And I was like, oh my God, this is insane. And then I was like, wait a second. It's been like 3.5 years. Let me look at my barrel inventory. And I was like, oh shit, we're going to have stuff that's, 4 years in a day coming like soon. So we don't need these tanks. So I called Jonathan, my business partner, and I was totally screwed with him. I was like, yeah, I figured out how to get to use the tanks. It's like $250,000, and he was like, what? We're going to on a space, because we rent that space. And I was like, but we don't need it. And so we got picked up in the summertime by our distributor. They never made an order. And then February rolls around and those barrels are 4 years in a day. And so I pulled them and I started playing around with what the experts told me I could do, which was step it down. Like, let's see how this process works. And it really did not taste good at all. Just trying to add some 8-year to 4-year. I was like, this isn't very good. This is like, it's terrible. And I was like, well, let's see where it needs to be. Right. And so at 100 proof. And so I kept going. And then all of a sudden I got to a blend where I was like, I like this better. This has got like what I tasted when we tried that 5-year, like all the rye spice, because rye ages faster than corn. So the 8-year was beautiful, but it was a little more one-dimensional. Okay. And, of course, the 4-year was very young and very thin and hot, but it had all that spice on the finish. And so I was like, I'm going to do this. And this is how small batch is going to be. And once again, the expert's like, no, you've got, because I had back then we had, a lot of 8-year for the size we were, and they're like, you've got all these hundreds of barrels of 8-year. You're like in the catbird seat. Nobody else has 8-year MGP or 8-year barrels in general.
Yeah.
Because really MGP nobody understood it yet. They're like, you should put an age statement on it and then make small, do something with the 4-year. I was like, but this tastes better. And this tastes like something I've never had before. And I like this better than any other bourbon I've had. So what's the fucking point of doing this if I'm not creating something new that I like? And that was sort of like the original goal too. When I didn't fully understand distilling, it was like, I'm going to dive into distilling and I'm going to figure it out. And then we went to MGP and I saw how it was really done. And I was like, okay, never mind. I'll let these guys do that. And so that's how small batch began. So the goal with small batch was I was still hanging out in my bars a lot back then. And also in the summertime. So I really wanted something that held up if you made a cocktail. But for me, it was more like if you had it on the rocks, because here in the summer, when it's 113 degrees and you're sitting outside, if you're drinking something neat, 5% humidity, all the ethanol is just evaporating in your face. You're not getting any of the flavors, it's just. And so that was the goal with small batch, was enough heat on the finish and enough spice on the finish so it stands up when you have it on the rocks. And and I'm not a big oak fan, so I tried to blend the oak out with the younger juice, and that was how it all began. It was just 8 and 4-year, which is the irony, because like now, small batch is still, it's never going to be more than like 4 different vintages, because I cannot keep it consistent because of the volume that we can dump barrels at. But I do have a philosophy for it, where I want it to be fruit forward, a little bit of oak, and that rye spice and heat on the finish. And so if I start going off the rails and doing all these different vintages and floors like I do with Uncut Unfiltered, it's never gonna, it's too hard. And so it's funny because people are like, oh, they're running out of barrels, or there's I shouldn't say there's a lot of hate, because there's barely any hate. It's like very minuscule. But the irony is, in the beginning we only had 8 and 4-year. Now we've got like all these different vintages, and so it's cool because the way it's evolved, it has a very unique flavor profile. When I go back and revisit the archives and the older batches, I can taste the 8 and the 4-year, and it's not like they're competing with each other. They're complementing each other, but now new flavors appear that don't really exist in the vintages and floors on their own, except for some, if I'm trying to pump up a specific flavor on the finish. Some barrels have more cinnamon and some barrels have more white or black pepper, things like that. And so I can figure that out. But as far as like the on the palate upfront flavors, nothing that I'm working with tastes like that.
Interesting. It's fun to hear you say that, because John and I we go back and forth sometimes. Like, I really don't like oak that much, and John likes oak a whole lot. So like sometimes we'll drink something and he'll be like, this is amazing. And I'm like, yeah. It's a little oaky for me, but glad I'm not alone here.
Yeah, I would say the majority of people don't like oak. They think they do, because everybody says they want 75-year-old bourbon, but when you do a blind tasting, they generally lean towards the thing. And also some people, they like oak because they'll taste like oak water because they're not tannin sensitive. I shouldn't say it's not oak water, oak wood, because they're not tannin sensitive. So they're just getting like this nice woody flavor, while people who are tannin sensitive, they're not really getting that woody flavor. They're getting a harshness or like a sour, bitter, combination that's not pleasant. And so, and I saw that with like, Desert Jewel. Desert Jewel, when I used to do tastings and events and thing, was the most polarizing. Now everybody wants it because it's gone, and they're like, "Oh,
Yeah.
Desert Jewel!
Yeah.
I have my firstborn son that I will trade for that." and, and when I was doing tastings and things, I mean, people either loved it or they hated it. And then I would, let me get, people that loved it. I'm like, "Oh, you like big, earthy, tanniny wines and things like, oh yeah, that's what I like." And they're like, this is very, I love this flavor. And then other people are like, "Oh, it's too oaky." And especially when you go from like small batch to uncut to Desert Jewel, where small batch and kind of blending the oak out with the younger stuff. Yeah. So, but some people like oak.
It's cool to hear that.
those. Yeah.
Oh,
So
yeah,
how are you blending the oak out? Question came through the chat there. Like, what is your direct approach at getting that to mellow down into a profile that you're looking for?
Add younger vintages that don't have as much oak on the finish. And by the way, it's a trip, right? Because there's times where tannins are harsh, and thinness is harsh. And sometimes when I'm blending all these different things together, and all I can really tell is I'm getting a harsh, unpleasant finish, and I'm perceiving it as too much heat. So I think it's too thin. So I start blending in more of the older stuff, and it gets worse. I'm like, oh, it's not that. I'm getting it from from the tannins. And so even though the younger juice is thinner and perceivably hotter when you drink it, when you blend it in and take down the tannins and bring in the fruit and bring in all those like delicate flavors that disappear over time, it doesn't drink as hot. And it's insane, because people are like, "Oh, uncut doesn't drink it that hot." And it's like, if I was to give you the 7-year or the 8-year or the 9-year that I'm working with at like 115, 116 proof, it drinks hotter than it, because I should say perceivably hot, because it's not going to be as hot because there's more evaporation, so there's more lipid esters, so it's going to be creamier and insulate your palate from the heat and all those things. But the tannins make you think it's harsh, and so your brain thinks that's ethanol heat, because that's what we're sort of programmed to think, that any harshness is going to be alcohol. And it's like mercurial, man. I say it all the time, like, because I think I've got stuff figured out, and then, like I said, we're talking about earlier before we started doing the streaming, is I gotta walk in head high, tons of confidence. I'm gonna crush this fucking blend. Slapped in the face.
Right back to reality.
Yeah, and then I'm outside taking walks, trying to clear my head because I can't figure out, okay, we're gonna figure this out. But yeah, so and that's why I love it. That's why I love bourbon. Everything is. It's always changing, the barrels, the flavor profiles are always changing, depending in anything. Like even those the fifth floor 8-year barrel picks I did, those were not that great at 6 or 7 years, and they were not 120, 122 proof. And then just at the end of 7 years, I pulled some for blending, and I just happened to try one. I had no plans because I still had like 12-year barrels. I wasn't going to do any 7, 8-year barrel picks. And we were still tiny. And then I tried one. I was like, "Whoa, this is insane!" And it was only like that for 7 months. And then they were over oaked. And then then the proof went down, and the magic was gone. And so the people always ask me, like, what do I like better, uncut or barrel picks? And like flavor profile wise, I like the vintage blends better. But man, those barrels, it's like a memory in a bottle, it's just like that short period of time where it tasted like that, and there's no going back.
Yeah.
And there's no getting it again. You're never going to find that flavor again. At least I haven't been able to.
It's interesting how that works, but you made a good point recently that I want to hit on really quick. So
Sure.
Like Smokewagon it has blown up considerably, and we've seen it recently, and it's kind of new to a lot of people, at least in the last couple of years. But you made a comment about, picking stuff out in 2012. So, and that's 8. Yeah, we're 2021. That's 8 to 9 years ago. So how did Smokewagon get started? Tell me about where did Smokewagon and Nevada Distilling come from, and how did you decide that this is something you guys wanted to do, and what got you going to where you are now today?
Well, So Jonathan and I, we owned bars together. We had a couple bars. We just started joking about it. Like we used to both drink a lot of vodka. I mean, this was years ago, right? Because we went to MGP in 2012, and so this was like 2 years before that. So, quite a long time ago. I mean, 11 years ago, 12 or more now, and those were wild times.
I wondered how vodka was in the portfolio, but now I kind of get it. Okay.
Yeah, and that's the thing, because like now the vodka is getting popularity. People are like, oh, Smokewagon is trying to cash in, and they've got this new vodka. I'm like, no, man, that's where it started. I designed the bottle for the replica of the Morgan Silver Dollar, and so, so we just decided to do it. I just said, and so I tracked down seal filtration system. I went to this Russian website and to use the Google translator and found a phone number for this. I called a phone number, and it took I said U.S. call here or English speaking countries call here. I can't remember what it said. And this is Russian woman in India. And we had the system. Now, what I learned is that all you need is the filters. They're just 30-inch sanitary filters, but I didn't need the whole system. And, but it adds to the story, So we got to the seal filtration system, and we're trying to figure out where to do it, because I was still splitting my time between Nevada and California. And we actually talked about because we were everything was we were going to do it ourselves, and it was going to be craft, and we were going to distill everything ourselves. And it was like, well, where are people going to go? And where would be a good place for people to come visit? And, we're thinking about, going up Central Coast, California, Atascadero, where's horse country, and buy a big spread or something like that. And I just was like, no, Nevada. I mean, I was spending so little time in California at this point. I was just here all the time. And the city of Las Vegas has just been so good to us. And the irony is, I was like, yeah, and we'll get into the casinos, It's nothing beats liquor stores. Liquor stores are where it's at. If you're doing something that's a brand where, even the straight bourbon, cocktail menu. I come from the bar business. I kind of had an understanding of what bar clientele, bar customers want, and how everybody's competing for cocktail menus. We never had anybody on the cocktail menu for that long because the deal runs out, and then we go to the next person, and nobody's really paying it. None of the customers are really paying attention. But the point is, it's we'll get in the casinos if we do it in Las Vegas, and we get in the casino. The casinos are nothing compared to what liquor stores do.
Really?
And yeah, I mean, if you're a big brand, it makes sense because people go to Las Vegas, they have this experience, and they're like, oh, remember when I had at this one place? And you go home and, you get exposed to it that way. But for us, especially when this was the only market, I was like, I can't make those deals. I mean, big brands just give that shit away, Yeah. I was like, this is my we can't do that. I mean, I do love being at the casinos because, man, it is fun. Going out to doing account support, going to dinners. We got an Aria and going to all the restaurant, and knowing the bartenders is cool because they're all mixologists, and so you have a good relationship with these guys that really understand. And the beverage directors are they know everything, and so that aspect of it is the corporate aspect of it blows, but the personnel aspect of it is amazing, and the experience, eating at those restaurants, and it's incredible. And so we just found this shitty little spot, and because we wanted to be within the city limits, and we had to get specific zoning for to do what we're going to do, and we found this 3,900 square foot space, and which now is way too small. And the adventure began, and I was no longer drinking vodka. I don't even think Jonathan was really hardly drinking at all anymore. He was so busy. I can't remember what he was working on, but I just had to slow it down. I just was like, it was too crazy. Those days are too crazy. I mean, they're legendary. People who witnessed how much I used to drink and like how how I behaved, and the fact that I came out unscathed, is pretty remarkable. But start looking in the mirror and you start looking at your birth date, and you go, I don't think I can do this much longer.
Not sustainable.
And also I was kind of bored, like I used to have all this manic energy, and I would get to the bars and there was just so many adventures going on. And when social media and everything came out, it all kind of ended. Like everybody was sort of looking at their phones.
Oh, that's a good point.
No, you didn't really. If you want, look, before like phones, if you want to get laid, which pretty much everybody does, you got to have game. You got to be able to talk to people. You got to be either funny or something, and so everybody, when you're in a bar, you're out to like have a good time, and so everybody's talking to each other, and then all of a sudden you don't have to talk to anybody, and
yeah, you've already had 3 conversations on your phone before you show up to the bar.
Yeah, and I just found myself being in the bar drinking too much, and I was like, this is bad. I'm like bored, and I'm still drinking how I was when it used to be party time, and so I just started. I was like, I'm gonna slow it down. Obviously, vodka is not the way to slow it down. I need something that's got heat to it, that's got flavor, that's got, something that's going to force me to drink it slowly. Yeah. And I just tried it. I tried all the brown spirits, and I love bourbon. I tried scotch but just bourbon was it for me. And I was drinking a lot of Four Roses single barrel. I really liked the Michter's rye when it first came out, when it was a 3-year, it was just so delicate and beautiful. And, a lot of like, I'm trying to remember what else, like when each Taylor a lot of those things you just get at a bar and drink them.
Yeah.
It wasn't like it was like they were everywhere.
And then you come up with a great idea on how to slow down is to start your own bourbon company.
Well, so we had already started, right? We were already going with the vibe, like we were already going to, bought the still from Vendome. That was already set up by the time we got to MGP. The whole place was set up to distill from scratch.
Oh, okay.
And when I bought that Vendome still, they told me they had just started making them like that. Because Vendome traditionally just does big giant column stills for big brands, and all the craft guys were buying Bavarian Holstein and Carl Artisan stills. And I was like, there has to be a U.S. manufacturer. It can't be all German made stills. We're making bourbon. It's an American spirit.
As American as it gets, right?
Yeah. So I remember, I think it was that I'm trying to remember what it was. I think it was on the American Distilling Institute website. There was just a random picture that was somebody went to like a big distillery, and it was like, oh, this is how big guys do it. And there was a Vendome, mark. Said Vendome, Kentucky. Did it. Yeah. And so I Googled it and I found them and I called them. I was like, hey, they're like, yeah, we just started doing those. I don't even know now I don't know what it's like, but before COVID and everything, the wait time for one of those stills was like ridiculous. So there we were, stars in our eyes, gonna figure out how to distill better than everybody. Oh, aging in Las Vegas is probably going to be super great. And which I found out you lose 50% in the first year, if you do it here. And then, so we were using Dave Pickerel as our consultant, and he could not find us. And so I was all intimidated. I mean, I was full of bravado and at the same time intimidated. And he was like, don't worry about it. You just buy aged juice. Everybody buys aged juice. Everybody's doing it. Half the guys that say they're distilling aren't. They're just buying it. And so I was like, okay. And we couldn't find any, because that year, 2011, I think it was, 250 craft distilleries opened up in 1 year. Oh, and And so all of a sudden, as a collective, we were competition to big brands. And so big brands, because bourbon boom hadn't really happened yet. And because it was still, like 2009, 2010, it just happened. And before that, it was all vodka, 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 all the VIP stuff, all the table service, all that was vodka. And by the way, that was one of our motivations, because we were like, this shit's going to end. This can't go on forever. And people are going to want like an affordable vodka. And by the way, the company that was perfectly positioned to be perceived as a superior handmade craft product when 2009, 2010 happened, that was inexpensive was like Tito's. I mean, he was there. That was perfect timing. And so we want to do like this Russian style vodka, but made with corn, so it'd be cheap and all that stuff. Our timing for the vodka wasn't there, but the timing for the bourbon, sure.
Yeah.
The timing for the bourbon
Lottery winner.
because so MGP would not sell to Dave because there was bad blood from the Maker's Mark days. And so I had to call them, and they were kind of sort of over craft guys as well, because like they were showing up wanting to buy 2 or 3 barrels, and I don't think that that's what they planned on, because they looked at like all these output and production contracts they have with Diageo and Pernod Ricard and like Dickel and all these things, and they're like, yeah, we'll just get these craft guys will come in and we'll and everybody's like trying to buy 2 to 4 barrels or whatever. And so they're like, if you're serious, you'll come out here. And so we flew out there. I was like, when? And like, next week. I was like, well, all right, let's do it. And so we flew out there. We stayed in Cincinnati at that awesome hotel, man. I can't remember. I think it's the Hilton or the Hyatt. It's like the finest example of Art Deco architecture in the country. And we drive to MGP every day, and we tried everything and toured the facility. Yeah, touring the facility. Fucking 40-acre facility with 100-foot high column still that has 3 power sources, depending on which is the cheapest to run it on the banks of the Ohio River, with these insane. I mean, the rack houses they're crazy. They're massive. Shouldn't really say monolithic, because they're not tall, they're wide, but they're all brick with very little windows. And it was all engineered by Seagram's to be on that side of the Ohio River, because that's the way the wind blows, and they get all the mist in the morning. That's where the aquifer is, this giant, huge aquifer. And everything's double-walled masonry, sealing all the moisture. So the sub basements are wet. The dirt's always wet. It's all about humidity. Lots and lots of humidity, because apparently that's very important to aging bourbon. And I don't live in a place like that. I live in a place with
the opposite of that
humidity. Yeah. So, and then you go to the control room and see like the computer screens, and all these guys are like watching computer printouts and things like that. You're just like, this isn't what they told me.
Someone fucking lied.
Oh, they've been lied to. There's supposed to be a bunch of old guys sniffing stuff, and like, where's the spigot? Where's the distiller's spigot and the little sight, glass and all that shit? That's what they're like, no, this is like, you want your chemical composition to be the same every distillation run. A, you don't want people to go blind or die. And B, the variation happens in the barrel. And so we don't sniff it to see if there's no acetone. We watch a computer, methanol sniffers that tell you the exact chemical composition of the distillate, so you can make sure the still is running right and everything's going to be the same. And so that your only variation is the oak and the seasons and all those things, but the distillate is the same. And nobody here was hired for their palate. They're all hired because they've got chemistry degrees. And you're like, Well, that makes a lot of fucking sense. I think if I was going to hire someone to distill something that could kill you and make you go blind, I'd want them to be have a chemistry degree and understand the chemical composition. And there's other things too, like lipid esters and all those things that do factor into the flavor profile, and the creaminess and all that stuff. But yeah, so I was like, well, shit. First of all, like, okay. That's not really my personality, like trying to figure out how to make something the same all the time. And the other thing is, like, how do you scale to this?
Yeah.
We got a 3,900 square foot space with a little Vendome copper pot still that distilling from scratch could do 1 barrel a day, basically. You know, it's a 250 or 1 barrel in like 7 hours. Like, what you just now? I mean, I was just like, somebody slapped me in the face. You know, I was just walking around like, what? You know, the facility and everything. And it's funny because Jonathan was always the pragmatic one, and he was like, couldn't we just get someone to do the distillate for us? Why? You know, because we're looking at how you dispose of grain, and we're on a septic system there, and so it's like everything was gonna be a giant pain in the ass. And but we still kind of walked away with we're going to distill from scratch to some degree. But that changed in 2015. But in 2012, we bought everything they would sell us of the 36% rye. Because like I said earlier, I was drinking Four Roses single barrel, which is 35% rye. And they were like, but we have a 36.
Sign me up.
Sign me up. Yeah. And so we tried it, and you know, we bought everything they'd sell us in 2012.
Wow.
And then we went back and could not get these tanks approved. And then the ex-warehouse manager from MGP, he told me, he said, hey, just so you know, MGP has closed their doors on craft brands. So they closed their doors on craft brands for a while, and you had to go through Ultra Pure, because Ultra Pure came to MGP and said, hey, we will don't deal with all these craft guys. Just do one, we'll deal with them, and then you just get one contract with us, one order. You're not getting a whole bunch of little orders. And so like, and nobody could get barrels because of 2009, 2010. No one was building houses on the East Coast, so no one was logging. So in 2014, 2015, if you look, everybody was making rum. None of the craft guys were doing bourbon because they couldn't get new oak. And so he said, you guys have a contract with MGP for storage, and they fucking love you. You should call them and see if you can contract new distillate with them. And I did, and they would. And so that's what we started doing. We started doing 600 barrels a year.
Wow.
Yeah, pardon me. And it just worked out, because when we finally, like, when all the stuff I was talking about earlier, like, you know, oh, screw these tanks, called the city, we're not doing the tanks. They're like, you're approved, go to the state. And the state said, hey, what do you want? Rectifier's license or a craft distiller's license? And I said, I want the rectifier's license with permission to distill, like you told me I could have. You know, I don't know, 2011 when we started. Now it's like 2015, 2016. And they said, oh, we don't do that anymore. Now there's a craft distiller's license. So if you want to distill from scratch, you have to do it on the craft distiller's license. And I said, well, what about my 2,000 barrels in Indiana? And they're like, oh, you can't import those under a craft distiller's license. It's like, oh. And I said, well, what about vodka? And they're like, you have to distill it from scratch. I was like, I am not distilling vodka from scratch. I don't own a farm. That's ridiculous. And nobody just, St. George doesn't distill vodka from scratch. I mean, it's so funny because I forgot about that story, because now vodka and, like, you know, nobody's like really doing any of that, you know. But back then it was like, yeah, at St. George, you know, everybody buys GNS and runs it through their still. Nobody distills from scratch. But they would let me distill GNS through the still. So we're like, fuck it, let's be a rectifier, you know. And then I started finding out, like, because there was a distillery that was open here, and that's when I started finding out they were getting a 48% proof gallon loss in their first year, and so it all just worked out, and yeah, and so just everything worked out. And I mean, look, theoretically, I could. And I was advised to do this, because like everybody's like, you gotta get distilled in Indiana off the back of your label. I'm like, why? It's like, I'm not gonna lie, but I'm not gonna lie about anything. It's like you look at things, right? And what are the things that can trip you up, that can screw your life up, right? Skeletons in the closet, lying, being exposed. It's like, if it happens to you when you're big enough, it doesn't matter. We've seen all these brands where like they get discovered and no one gives a shit. I mean, we could go to, there's a list of them, but it's not how I wanted to live my life. I didn't want there to be anything where we could get found out,
Yeah.
You guys are really, and so I could buy a White Dog from MGP. I could run it through my Vendome still with all the bubble plates open. I could put it in a barrel and age it to, however long. Because now, now you can bury your age statement, right? In the back, in the puffery. You didn't used to be able to do that. You used to have it like up front. If you had 2-year bourbon, it was on your brand label.
That's right.
It was not on the back label buried. A story about how your grandfather died and left you the recipe, and it's been in the family for 12,000 years, and it doesn't have anything younger than 1.5 years, 18 months or whatever. It's like,
right.
At least 6 months per day.
Yeah. And so then you walk around with a fucking eyedropper, right? Ferried, and these aren't theoretical things. This is what people do. You walk around with an eyedropper and you fairy dust. You fairy dust all your, and that's a term. You fairy dust all your barrels or dumps that you've bought from other places, and so now you name your still Millie or Vanessa or Mildred or some fucking shit, and you say, we were sourcing our juice. Not anymore. We're distilling our own now. Yes, sir. And then the brand label all of a sudden says a blend of straight bourbons, right? Because you're getting it from maybe you are distilling your own, but you're blending it with your source stuff that you're getting, so it's multi-state. And so that's what a blend of straight bourbons mean. And then bam, your distilled statement, the state of origin can come off your back label. And now you can say whatever the fuck you want. And there's no way, unless somebody's like in there figuring out. And I didn't want to do that. I didn't want to do any of that stuff. I just wanted to, make something the best way that I felt that I could do it. And fortunately, MGP has been amazing. And we have an excellent relationship with them. And honestly, the pricing I'm getting now is better than I could do it myself. And there's no difference except for geography. Every month we plan it out. We go, okay, we want to do 200 barrels this month, and we want on this floor and this floor and this warehouse and this warehouse, and it's all day one distillate. So it's not like I'm scrambling around trying to find source juice. I'm contracting them to lay down what I'm going to need in the future, and so I guess, and I still get into like this state right now where I'm like defending myself, like, hey, but it's. I don't know. It's working. I love it. It's great. It's I get to have fun. I get to blend all this cool stuff and
absolutely.
And the answer to the question is, how do you scale to this? Well, now it's a phone call. Hey, I'd like to do 400 barrels this month instead of 200. We're not like, oh shit, we do need to build bigger space and all that, but yeah, I don't even remember what the question was that got me to that point.
It's okay. I mean, so I work in computers, right? And like 10 years ago, if you needed more computers, you went and buy them. And now I just, I write a little code and I get 20 times as many instances as I needed to. Like scaling is crazy these days. But
yeah,
you mentioned you're running out of space. Are we going to see a Smokewagon skyscraper in Vegas anytime soon? You guys going up instead of?
Yeah, so we're working on it. We bought this land next door from the city. It's like an acre and a half, and again, it's like one of these stories like the tanks. Like you're right, the tanks saved me. Not getting those tanks approved, I would have dumped all that 5-year bourbon, and those tanks not getting approved. So here we have all these problems trying to get this land developed. It takes so long that we find out there's going to be a freeway expansion, and there's a 99.9% chance in the next 6 years that land will be condemned. All right. Life's over. We're screwed. Nope. Turns out the city now has another piece of property that just became available because they had condemned it for a different freeway expansion that's over, and they didn't end up using it all. And it's in a much better location. I mean, it's a lot more money, but we have more money now because, the business is successful. And so, yeah, it's like 4 acres, like right in the arts district. It's amazing. It's incredible. Like, because we're in a bad area. I mean, we fenced it all. Once we bought the land and closed the deal, we fenced all that in. But every day I went to the distillery, especially when I was there by myself, open carry all the time. I mean, I was always chasing crazy, I shouldn't say crazy, but like bad people out of my
you can't just have that much liquor sitting around, expect the riffraff to not get into it, right?
Nobody knew what we were doing. It was a big vacant lot, and the Mission is a block away, and it's like this weird area. And yeah, man, I had some hairy experiences down there for sure. But the new space is like so nice.
It's the thing.
It has like all these crazy things like water and power and a sewer system.
Like crazy newfangled bullshit that you didn't know existed.
That's hilarious. Well, those are all good things to have, especially when you need, power and water and stuff like that for. But
it just makes and there's a building, like one of the buildings has to be scraped. The other building we can remodel. And so it just makes everything faster, because that's the holdup space. We have the juice now. I have the bottling equipment. It's like we fill the space up, and then we got to wait for the trucks to come. I would really we'd probably be bottling like 24 hours a day. There's nowhere to put the inventory. And so people are like, when are you going to get in my state? And it's like, I can't even keep up with where we are now. And it's not because of I don't have the juice or whatever. It's just, there's just no room, and there's no room for enough barrels. I mean, we go through 88 barrels every 2 weeks now. Man. 88 barrels used to be like a year maybe. And so every truck that comes every 2 weeks, it's like I'm trying to plan for what we're going to be bottling. And so I never have enough barrels on location to be like, okay, let's, the orders are coming in for straight. Let's do straight right now, because that's the demand. It's like, well, no, everything is like old and off high floors, and the proof, financially, I can't turn this into straight bourbon. This has got to go to uncut, unfiltered, or small batch, and so we can't do straight until that next truck comes. And so it's always crap like that.
It's always some logistics hang up, huh?
Yeah.
Well, while we're speaking logistics, why don't we switch gears here? And I'd love to hear a little bit about the that's blown out. The rare and limited batch 1 that we have. What's the story behind that? What brought this to be? And especially the blue ribbon and the medallion, which I think
let's talk about that.
Oh shit. We might have I got other ones too. So the more's coming out, so we'll have cold ones like this.
Nice.
I mean, I know there's typos on the back label. I'm actually at my desk where I thought I had everything, but I guess this is the only one I have. So here we go, right? This is what we were talking about sooner. People are probably like, how come those guys got a sample of rare and limited? What did they do?
Yeah.
What did they do to get that? And that was before it was released. And so I was like, oh yeah, I was a little nervous about it. I wanted to make sure, I knew the hype was building, but it wasn't like it hadn't gotten anywhere yet. Sure. I was like, oh, it'd be kind of cool. if when it's out, we have some people trying it so they can talk about it and let everybody know whether or not it's any good. And it, it's all gone. So
I say, well, which is good. I mean, I was going to say now
no,
we don't have.
it's very good. It's
good.
funny because nothing. I shouldn't say nothing I do is calculated. There are certain things that I do that's calculated, but in the opposite way, right? Like all my packaging decisions when we had to buy the Italian glass, I was like, okay, we're not going to do any more gift boxes. We're not going to do any more fancy 6-packs. That way we can keep our costs the same, even with a higher cost in glass, and so the price isn't going to go up. So everything is going to stay the same. I was like really wanting to get that straight bourbon done. When I started planning for that 4 years, right? Put all those barrels on that high floor, try to get the straight bourbon. And pardon me. And but this was just supposed to be like this fun thing. Like, hey, oh man, here's a tank that almost every tank that I'd use for blending, because I try all the barrels before I offer them to retailers. These weren't rejected by a retailer, rejected by me. I never offered them to retailers. And so everything, I would say 90% of the 5th floor 8 years made it to rare and limited barrel. I'm sorry, private barrel picks. Most of the 4th floor ones were too young. I mean, at one point it all switched, because the 4th floor ones started to taste better and the higher floors started to get over oaked. So this tank was all 5th floor 8 years, and I just decided to try it before I used it for blending, and I was like, holy shit, this is amazing.
Got a winner.
Yeah, I'm not going to blend with this. This is crazy. I need to figure out a way to get this released. And so this was during COVID, where we're having bottle delays and all these problems. And, even to come up with a new expression and get the wax color, get the new label done, get all that stuff done is months. It's like 4 months. If we were going to do whatever, I don't know, say we're doing a rye, right? And I had it now. Be 4 months before we'd have the packaging done and delivered. So I wanted a way where I could just release something in the moment. No special release dates. If you're paying attention to Instagram, which back then it wasn't like 20,000. I mean, it was much smaller. I was like, this is going to be cool for everyone, because we'll talk about it and they'll see when it's coming out, and then they'll be in the know. And so they won't have to worry about flippers. Or I know.
Those were the days, my friend.
Those were the days.
And and so that's why I did this label, so that we could customize. So I just ordered 20,000 of these bottles. The first medallions. Actually, this isn't one of the first ones. These are one of the newer ones. The newer ones are blank on the bottom, on the back. So we're gonna get a like a watch engraver, so I can engrave the numbers. And then we just get it out, right? And so the whole thing was, if it's a single vintage, it's going to be blue, like Desert Jewel was. If it's a proof down vintage blend, it'll be gold, like small batch. Vintage blend, no water, black and gold, like uncut. That's a really cool one. I wish I had one to show you. And then, I'm sorry, I'm scanning my desk over here. And then if the single barrels are going to be red and gold, like private barrel.
Sure.
Cool.
And so and I really like the idea of the coin, because I don't know, it's like for me, and what I would want, it's like a packaging thing that makes sense, because like a box doesn't make sense. I don't want a box. I don't want to spend $60 for a fucking box that I'm going to throw away or sits on the shelf, and that's what it is. I mean, just to give you an idea, it's like if I was to buy a box for $9, right? And let's just say out of the goodness of my heart, I don't make any money on it, so I just charge $9 more. Well, that's $20 by the time it gets to
Yeah.
retail. Minimum markups, right? $20. So if I want to double my money, which is the minimum of what you want to do, so now it's $18, so that's $40 fucking dollars to retail for a $9 piece of shit box. So when you look at some of this packaging, I mean, it's one thing if you're a big brand and you got that buying power and you're making deals. But if you look at these little brands and they got a box, it's all fancy with pillows and silk and all that shit, and you're looking at it's $170 for a 5-year bourbon, I can tell you why. It's because that fucking box, man. That box is like, I don't know. What if we're talking $9 box is 40, and so that's probably like a $25 box. That's like $100. That's probably $100 of that. I'm just guessing, but more if let's say they don't make any money in a box, it costs them $25 and they add $25 to the FOB to the distributor. It's still $50. Still, it's like a bottle that should be $100. It's now $170.
It's funny too, because like the first thing when I buy stuff like that is I take it out of the box and I like throw the box away, or I use it to start my solo stove, or I just like throw it on some random shelf that's never going to see the light anymore.
Everybody throws the boxes away. Even like our boxes that we originally used in the beginning, bars throw them away. But I noticed that even liquor stores were throwing them away because the bottle sold faster when people could see the bottle. Yep. So I thought these were cool because like you take it apart, use it as a keychain or something. I don't know. Maybe you want to have medals on your shirt. Show people how many rare and limited
in general.
Yeah, it's just like, and that's what I would want. I would want something like this. I could put it in a drawer, or I could make a keychain out of it, or I don't know,
like a challenge point
type of thing. And this is what I would want, and so that's why I did these. And I figured, and also it was an easy way to distinguish each one instead of it just being, reading it. It would be like, oh, if you saw it on the shelf and it was blue, you knew it was a single vintage and all that.
Yeah,
sure.
I dig it.
No, that's interesting. It's good too, by the way. I mean, I know that everyone's already bought it, but I mean,
I'm digging into this. It's really nice.
I'm gonna have a little bit
back here in the background, but
so it sounded, Aaron, like you said that there's going to be a Smokewagon rye coming. Is that what's going on there? we do have that recorded.
Man, I love that.
It reminds me of my old favorite cereal, which was Raisin Bran Crunch with brown sugar.
It's nice. Amazing that's 119 proof.
Yeah, it does not drink like it at all.
Man, even it's luxurious too. That mouthfeel is crazy.
The first one, the small batch, drank like 42, 44, and I looked down and was like, "Oh shit, it's 100 proof. I got to slow down."
Yeah, at 100 proof, I could, that's the thing. I blend it to retain heat. At 100 proof, I can blend that heat right out of there. But I want it, to have some heat. It would be a little hot for some people out of the bottle. So, like I said, if they make a cocktail or have it on the rocks, you're going to taste it.
That's nice.
To answer your question about rye, I mean, I was all set to do a rye, and then we bought 1,400 barrels, and that's a lot of barrels. 5, 6, and 7-year barrels. So it's not like new day one barrels. It's like aged barrels in the height of the bourbon boom.
That's expensive.
That's a lot of homework too. That's going to keep you busy for a long goddamn time.
Yeah, we got a deal, but it's still a lot of money.
Wow,
a lot of money, a lot of time blending that too.
1,400 barrels. Yeah, that's
yeah. So now I don't even know how I got my barrel. Let's see if it's got I've got a lot of barrels now. I'm looking at my barrel inventory over here on the old computer, and it's pretty amazing. It's pretty awesome.
I mean, it's only like 60,000 gallons of bourbon. Like, it's like a little bit.
Yeah. Well, the thing was, it's like we already had tons, but it was just like it was 2015 is when we started laying it down, and so this filled in all the holes. And then it made it so that even if we blow through all our 5, we don't have to worry about the 5-year going into straight bourbon because we got this stuff, and it's just, and the timing again, it's like we had that article, right? I can't remember the Aaron Goldfarb article. It said Smokewagon, hottest shit right now. But will they last? Probably not, because nobody ever does. They don't have the juice. Nobody has the juice.
I think you got the juice, my friend.
and that was my one thing that I was stressed about. I was like, we're gonna have like a year or two where our oldest bourbon is gonna be like, 6 or 7 years, and then that article came out, and my business partner was like, yeah, I kind of see what you're talking about. And then the next morning, my MGP rep called with that deal, and I was like,
oh,
perfect,
good setup.
Yeah,
the universe provides, man, for
sure, 100%. You just got to be appreciated, don't get full of yourself, or
seriously, that's crazy.
You will learn. It might take some time. I'm old now. Now.
So we had a question come in here from Chad. He wants to know when you're basically telling MGP what you want, how does the process look?
It's a form, a barrel. It's called. I actually just did one today, so I've got one pulled up here. Let's see what's it called. It's called like a barrel activity request form.
Ooh.
So I fill it out with. It's interesting because it doesn't have the locations. But it does have the laydown dates and the federal batch ID number. And I've only had one instance where I had a federal batch ID number spread over multiple warehouses and multiple floors. Usually everything's on one floor. Like I'll give here. Sorry, I'll give you an example. As I look on my.
And yes, the acronym is BARF, right?
Yeah. So like here we got batch ID number 15B22-B14. Every single one of those is in warehouse and on the 5th floor. And so I'm looking at like all these other ones, like this huge one. Yeah. So anyhow, that's boring because I'm looking at it and you're just looking at me staring off into space. But yeah, so so basically they can tell by the quantity, right? Because I always pull a full lot. So the lots usually are between 18 and 27. And so they can tell, like sometimes there's odd lots, which are like 5 or 6. And so they can figure out the location based on the batch ID number and the lot number, quantity that I'm pulling. The palletized ones are unique. One of the reasons I don't really like them for multiple reasons. Fucking seeing a bung on a barrel head makes me, I don't like that. It's unholy. I didn't realize that's how they did it until, there were some palletized barrels in this deal. And I tried them all, and they're great for blending. They're really great for blending because they're high proof, and so they'll kick the proof up. But you can't predict what's going to happen because they're just all like crammed in there, and that like you just got to pull in quantities of 4 because there's 4 to a pallet. But yeah, so send in my sheet, lay down date, federal batch ID number, what it is. It's all 36% bourbon. That's all I have. 36% rye bourbon, sure. And the quantity. And so those things will let them know like what I want.
Okay, interesting.
And it's all out of my barrel inventory that I own. It's not like I'm not like buying it in the moment and then
Totally. Okay.
Perfect.
Yeah, interesting. That's some good insight there.
Yeah, that's a cool breakdown.
I think we're coming up here. I think we've blown past the top of the hour here, which is totally fine. This has been awesome. But why don't we go ahead and I think wrap things up? Are there any kind of final notes you'd like to give us? I mean, usually we talk a lot about what we're drinking, but like I've had the small batch.
I'm sorry, did I go through? Was I yammering too much?
No. I think this is exactly what everybody needed, man. We wanted to hear everything about Smokewagon, everything you're willing to share.
This has been great, especially, I mean, like, labels have great information and social media is great information, but like you can't usually just get the day one to day now information all in one place, which has been,
especially, because you're not going to tell all those stories on your website. I mean, it's like,
it's too long for a tweet. Like I get it.
Yeah.
No, this has been great. And this is why we do this. Like, we love connecting with the people behind the brands and, like, you know, like, why'd you get started? Like, how did you get to today? And this has been a super blast. So it's
Thank you. Yeah, I mean, there was a lot more stuff in between, but you know, it's funny because I can't remember what the moment was, but Jonathan was definitely talking about it more than me, like starting a distillery. And for me, it was like one of those things, like, you know, we were in the bar business. It was like, yeah, we should, you know, he's got a friend who lived in China. He's like, we should, you know, and the friend knew about all like how to get a bar done in China. He's like, we should do a bar in China. I was like, yeah, we should do a bar in China. Okay, well, I'll get right the fuck on that.
I'll be right there.
Yeah, I was like, you know, just something. And this was like one of those things. Like, we should do this. I'm like, yeah. And then all of a sudden, I was like, this is what we should do. We're gonna do this. And because he said he was like, one day I was just on it, like gonna make it happen. And I can tell you the factors. You know, I mean, they're not like romantic factors. The romance came later. You know, but that's one of the things I love about this is it's always creative. There's always something creative going on. And that was the thing, like, that really where I didn't want to do any more bars. I didn't want to do any more bars because I was getting older. And it was just like, when I started, I was 31, you know, I was a maniac, man. I was out every night. I like could not wait to get out the door. I mean, I'd go get like Jack in the Box so I could eat my dinner on the way to the bar. So I was like there when it opened, you know. It's just I couldn't wait every night. And when I opened a bar in Las Vegas, I was going to the after hours, like coming home, you know, 10 in the morning, and like no drugs, just drinking. And which people could not believe. They were like, "How are you up? How are you doing what you do?" And I was like, "It's just like I was mad. I was like crazy,
ready to do this, man."
Yeah, but it's not healthy. And then I still understand the bar business in Las Vegas because people come here to party, and I get that, but I don't really understand what's going on. Like, people aren't really going out to party anymore. I don't know what they're doing. And I'm old. It's like I'm not. I'm like, you know, I used to know people would come and check out the juke, like, because I was not old. I was like. Yeah, I was older than your average bar customer, which was like 21 or 23, but it's not like, you know, but I knew all the bands. Like, people would come and see the jukebox. Like, how, you know, and I was like, somebody told me I should have been a producer because I was like picking all the bands, and then like 3 months later, boom, they'd blow up and like everybody would know about them. And you know, it's tough. It's like, it's all the time and you got to be there all the time. And, I wanted to change the lifestyle, but the thing is, I liked designing the bars, and then once they opened, the creativity was gone. You're just managing. You're just trying to manage. You're trying to manage. You know, you're trying to manage and maintain the crowd. You're trying to manage and this is like every day it's creative. Everything's changing. The barrels are always changing. The blends are never the same. There's always something different. It's like you never just like, you know what I mean? You're not mad. It's this magical process, and I love it. And the bourbon community is incredible.
Yeah.
People I've met are amazing. It's like,
oh, good.
I've never seen anything like it. I mean, obviously there's like one or two out there that you're like, ugh, but 99%.
98%.
But yeah, so I know that was all like, so yeah, so those were just the things I was like, you know, I don't know, and I was bored. Because when I went into the bar business, I didn't know it, and I was like, I want to do something different. I want to challenge, like a mental challenge. I want to figure out something new, and so that was, and then I just fell in love with it.
Man, I love it. That's awesome. It's funny now because, like, if I'm awake after 11:30 p.m., I'm like salty about it.
Oh,
and
yeah.
I'm not 30 yet, so like maybe
I was up till 12:30 the other night, and I was like, "What have I done? Tomorrow is over."
Mistakes have
Tomorrow
been made.
destroyed. What? We'll wake up at like 8:30 now, or wake up early and be tired.
That's it though. Like I totally get it. Even in quarantine, it's crazy.
Man, this has been great. Aaron, thanks so much for coming on here. I really appreciate you coming in and just being candid with us, man. Telling us everything you have has been really fun.
Oh, thank you. You guys, is there anything else you want to know? Is there anything I missed, or
You just let us know when that rye is coming, man. Keep us on the top of the list.
I'll be looking for rare and limited.
I haven't even started designing the bottle, so I can tell you it's gonna be longer than 4 months.
Okay, I'll take that.
All right, we'll have you on in 5 months, and then we'll get to the bottom of it.
That's right. Do you want to go ahead and share your social media stuff to just let everybody know where they can find you, Smokewagon, and all that?
They can find Smokewagon. It's Smokewagon Bourbon. And every day I got to go on to find the fake accounts. It's crazy, especially the fake accounts trying to be me. That's the craziest thing.
Oh,
Everybody wants to be a crazy guy with a cowboy hat, you know?
Yeah, it's a trip, man. You see all these fake accounts with like my pictures. I'm like, they're not even the bourbon pictures. They're just pictures of me. I'm like, what?
You got fans, man. That's the price of popularity.
That's right.
They're all great. I love it. It's amazing. Seriously, it's like every day I feel fortunate. It's like, it's like we joke around and everything, but it's been an incredible experience. It still is every day, and even like I do have like a kind of a semi-personal account. It's not like I used to have one that was private, and I don't really use that anymore. And even like because the guys follow it, and it's awesome. Like if I talk, I had some health stuff I had to deal with, and it's like I've had people that were supposed to be my friends on like my old one, like because this has been something that's been going on for years. It's like when I would talk about like, oh, sorry, but these guys, man, I'll talk about, and they like write like these really thoughtful, amazing comments. It's like people that I only know through the bourbon and through social media. It's incredible, Yeah,
we're blessed with a very very compassionate industry, which is really kind of nice.
Yeah, absolutely. Jay, you want to go ahead and wrap this one up, and I'll hit the outro for us?
Yeah, that sounds great. Well, thank you everybody for joining us. Thank you so much for your time, Aaron. It has been awesome.
My pleasure.
I know we've talked on Instagram on and off. It was great to be featured beside you in Gear Patrol, which is we kind of hit it off a while back. So it's super great to see you here on our show tonight. And
I had a great time. I appreciate you guys having me on. It's amazing. Thank you.
Good. We'll make it a regular thing. But for everyone that's joining
I'm
us,
I'm gonna have to step on my lighting game. You guys look everybody.
Yeah.
Well, like, because she's got man.
We're not beautiful.
Get together over here.
Lighting goes a long way.
It's lighting covers a multitude of sins, or so my fiance tells me.
Correct.
Every day.
I'm not. Hey, by the way, I'm not making fun of you. I'm serious. It's awesome. You guys look like pros, and I'm just like over here, like it's like this is what you do, and here I am with
just making great whiskey. I mean,
just that stuff. I mean, what I want to know is where I'm going to find a hat. So next time when we have you on, John and I we'll get matching hats. Because I think
summertime's easier. The hats I wear in the summer are those are all Larry Mann hats. Those are not. These are custom from Watson's Hat Shop in Cave Creek, Arizona, but they're fucking expensive.
Damn.
But
okay. Well, I don't know.
You got to go there because he measures your head with this thing from 1880 something, like out of a hat shop that he bought out. All this. That's crazy.
Damn.
And it punches your head shape on a punch card, and he uses that to custom make the hat band to your head shape.
I don't know if I can afford any more expensive hobbies, but that sounds like one for the books.
Well, you only have to get like one.
Okay.
Or two. I mean, they are for me. It's like, I'm like, oh, another one. Because it's like a creative thing, Sure. Like, oh, hey, and I want this brim and this. But yeah, you get one, you'll have it forever.
Cool.
Okay. Well, I'm looking forward to a one and done hat, but I think it'd be a good touch. I mean,
maybe once we have the Smokewagon skyscraper, you guys can buy. Yes. I'll buy you some hats. Things are going that good. We'll be like hat for you, like the cars, open cars. You get a hat. You get a hat.
I'm holding you
talking.
to it, and that will
Yeah.
be our. That is a great note for us to end tonight. But thank you so much again for joining us. If you're looking for more information on John, he's at the Bourbon Finder. He's on Instagram. He's on his website. We are at Weekly Whiskey. Catch us every Tuesday. We have a new after hours episode dropping on Thursday. And I'm Jay. I go by Take. I also at whiskeyraiders.com. And you can find reviews of all these Smokewagon bourbons, which are awesome. I'll clue you in. They'll be up online soon once we get some more aggregates. So thank you for joining, everyone. It's great to see you in good health, Aaron. And we'll wish you a good night with a cheers. But thanks for joining us.
Thank you, and Happy New Year, guys. I really appreciate it.
Yeah,
Happy New Year, brother.
as
Cheers.
well.
You bet.
Need some more bourbon.